Welcome back to the Defense Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Civilian Sydney. If you are new to the podcast, I'm thrilled to have you joining in, and you stepped in at a good time because this is going to be a really great episode. Before we get into that, I'll share a little bit about the podcast. My goal here is to demystify the complexities of defense tech by having conversations with experts in the industry. Being new to defense tech myself, I'm taking a from-the-ground-up approach in these conversations. This season is centered around space defense and the war that is happening over our heads. This week, I'm excited to introduce two new guests, Patrick Barrett and Jake Kvale from Infinity Systems Engineering. Patrick Barrett is Infinity's Vice President of Partnerships and Innovation and is responsible for strategy development, opportunity identification, capture management, proposals, and customer outreach. Previously, Patrick spent 23 years with Lockheed Martin in positions ranging from operations management, engineering management, and business development. Jake Kvale is Infinity's Director of Partnerships. He is responsible for leveraging Infinity's core capabilities to expand in both existing and new markets by offering outcome-oriented solutions that solve critical national security challenges. He has served a combined 30 years in the United States Air Force, Colorado Air National Guard, and United States Air Force Reserve, and has served in leadership positions within Space Operations Command and Deputy Commanding General Operations and the 310th Space Wing. Jay has been at Infinity for 26 years, since year one after the company was founded. Without further ado, I hope you enjoy this episode with Patrick and Jay. Hi, Patrick and Jay. Welcome to the podcast, and thank you to both of you for joining today.
Yeah, thanks, Sydney. I really appreciate you taking the time to meet with us today and to highlight our backgrounds and our company and the work that we're doing in defense innovation.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to it. So would you mind both of you starting by walking us through your respective backgrounds, your areas of expertise, and what you're passionate about in the industry?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll go first, and then I'll turn it over to Jay here. So hello, everybody. My name is Patrick Barrett. I just going kind of way back, got my undergrad in engineering from the University of Washington. My grandpa flew B-17s in World War II, then went on to study engineering and was a early pioneer in the space industry. And he was a big inspiration in my life. Then my dad went on to be an ROTC in the Navy, served for 27 years. And I knew that I really wanted to do something where I had the opportunity to serve, but I didn't necessarily want to go through the inconvenience of having to move all over the country all the time. And that's where I found the aerospace and defense industry. So I was hired on by Lockheed Martin in 1997 when I graduated from the University of Washington. And during my time at Lockheed, I spent 23 and a half years there. I had the opportunity to work on a wide variety of different programs and systems as an engineer, as a manager. But what I really liked was my time supporting mission operations and leading a pretty large operations team. And during that time, I found that there were a number of systems that we deploy for operators today that I'll just call them not state of the art, that are lacking modern technology, lacking innovation. And I was deeply inspired when Dr. Roper, was in his position within the Department of Defense, and he was really pushing for commercial best practices and bringing those forward into the defense industry. And I spent some time at Lockheed working to incorporate some of those commercial best practices and partnerships with, I'll call them non-traditional type companies while I was there. And then that led me to an opportunity to be the CEO, the Chief Executive Officer for Catalyst Campus for Technology and Innovation. And I led Catalyst Campus for Technology and Innovation for 26 months, a little over 2 years, headquartered in Colorado Springs, where we're at here today, recording this, but opened up a location out in Maryland, supporting PEO IWS and the Navy, and then also in Ogden, Utah, supporting the Air Force and Hill. And the premise of what we were doing there was taking really best practices from industry, government, academia, bringing them all together. And then we, as a 501c3 not-for-profit organization, had the opportunity to help facilitate that. So we weren't industry, we weren't academia, we weren't government, but we were that agnostic partner that allowed all of those to come together. And being a part of that was really, truly special. And then about a year ago, I joined Infinity Systems Engineering as their vice president for partnerships and innovation. And I'm able to leverage a lot of the background that I was able to build over my time at Lockheed and over my time at Catalyst Campus to help Infinity really take us to the next level when it comes to helping drive defense innovation and modernizing operations, especially in the space industry and space world that we're working in today. So that's a little bit about me and my background. I'll turn it over to Jay to introduce himself.
Thanks, Patrick. So similar in terms of what my interest and desire is, but maybe a little different path. So after graduating high school, I went right into the military. I was supporting the GPS program on the signal side. So I was a ground antenna monitor station disciplined individual supporting GPS, and had done that for my 4 years active duty. And then I decided to get out, and at that time I transitioned to the part-time Guard and Reserve, and then joined Infinity in that same time frame. And so I was on two parallel paths, continuing to serve Department of Defense space programs, along with on the contractor side in our professional space industry, working at Infinity and continuing to support space operations. So like I said, I started on like down the path of like an electrical engineer, doing signals, troubleshooting signals, uplink, downlink for commanding and controlling satellites. But then after I had gone through initially the Colorado Air National Guard with the DSP system up at Greeley, I decided to transition to the reserve out at Schriever, where I became a space operator. So I've been on both sides of the fence, which has really added value to my experience and contributing to our various space programs that we've supported over the years. But so I've been providing support to space for 30 years, a little over 30 years now, and a little over 26 of that here at Infinity. So it's been great. I have a passion. Anytime I go on an operations center, whether it's out at Schriever Space Force Base or some of our Title 50 support going into their operational environments, it's definitely satisfies the passion I have. And then, like I said, still put on the uniform. I do shave every now and again, supporting at Space Operations Command staff work. And again, it allows me to continue to provide support to the space programs from that perspective. So back over to you, Patrick.
Yeah, well, great. Thank you both so much for sharing. Would you mind now sharing a little bit more about Infinity Systems Engineering specifically, and what role the company plays in the larger picture of supporting our nation's space missions?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Sydney. So Infinity Systems Engineering was founded in 1996. So as a company, we've been around for a little over 27 and a half years. And the first several years of the company were really solely focused on GPS and PNT in that mission. And the founder of the company, he is still really an expert and an engineer in GPS and PNT technology, and he really wanted to found a company that was had a people first ideology, a company where people are treated well, and if you treat people well, as you know, then they're going to do a good job, and the missions are going to be well served, and that was really the foundation for Infinity was that ideology. So the very first contract that Infinity had was a subcontract to Lockheed Martin. supporting GPS, and that started in 1997. And then over the first 5 to 7 years, really just focused in the GPS world and PNT, then started branching into other military satellite communication systems, to the point where today we support about 70% of the overall systems of record, in terms of mission operations for Space Force, and really 100% of the systems supporting Space Operations Command SPOC.
Mm-hmm.
And if you fast forward about 3 years ago, we launched a internal research and development team to start looking at, with all of the mission operations experience that we've built supporting PNT and supporting MilSatCom, what were some of the major pain points that we could start tackling and start driving innovation towards. So we came up with a digital engineering solutions product line that we formally launched in 2023. And I know we're going to have an opportunity to talk a little bit more about that, later in the podcast today.
Mm-hmm.
But that was really big. The other thing is, we were founded in Colorado Springs. We're headquartered in Colorado Springs.
Okay.
We just opened up our new headquarters facility. I wish you could see the real view. You can see the one through the window here in our picture. But we're overlooking Pikes Peak. We're in a beautiful place here in the country. Really in the epicenter of space here in Colorado Springs, the space operations. So it's a great place for our company to be, a great place to foster foster our employees and help grow them, and have a great place to live and work. And then if you look at Infinity today now, after 27 years, we now have approximately 40 contracts total. Many of those are subcontracts, but we are the prime contractor supporting 2 SOPs, 4 SOPs, and 10 SOPs. We have employees today in 11 states and 7 OCONUS locations around the world. However, about 79% of our employees are in the state of Colorado. So still predominantly in Colorado, but we are, supporting, we do have employees globally. We just hit last year yearly revenue exceeding 60 million. We're considered a small non-traditional business under the NAICS code 541715, which allows us to be able to compete on some, but not all, small business type contracts. Right now, we're on several different IDIQ vehicles. So on Astro, which is a GSA vehicle, we're on the Astro Space Pool training and support, as well as Oasis Small Business Pool 3 and Seaport Next Gen. And we obviously also love the opportunity to work with NSTXL and the Space Enterprise Consortium, and have pursued several opportunities. I know we're going to talk to those here in a few minutes. And one of the unique value propositions about Infinity is, if you look at our 300 employees, about 110 of those 300 employees are operationally certified on mission systems of record. And that is really unique. A lot of small businesses, are really looking for where is their foothold within a market that can sometimes be, a little bit crowded. But one of the unique things that most small business don't have is that unique mission operations focus and experience that we can bring forward to support really full life cycle engineering. So from a solutions perspective, I talked a lot about our heritage, but Infinity has supported full life cycle engineering across the board. All the way from upfront system engineering through operations, maintenance, and sustainment. And again, done that predominantly through partnerships with other large, small, mid-sized companies, along with the Space Force. The Space Force is our largest customer today. We do have a couple of contracts supporting the Navy and supporting the Air Force, but the Space Force is predominantly our biggest customer. And we appreciate that partnership very much. From a
Yeah.
mission operations perspective, and we're going to deep dive into this in a little bit, but we support mission operations across all 4 orbital regimes, so across LEO, MEO, GEO, and HEO. And from an innovation perspective, I'll talk a little bit more later about our digital engineering solutions product line and deep dive on that. But that's been a game changer for Infinity to be able to walk in the door to any prospective customer and be able to not only come in with the solution side, but also products that help augment. So that's really big for us. And we as a company are very distinguished. We've been honored to win several awards. A couple that I just wanted to highlight: the Secretary of Defense Freedom Award in 2022. We also were awarded the Gazette's Best Workplaces. That Gazette's our local newspaper, and we've received that honor here for multiple years in a row. And then the other one's the Cogswell Award, and that's awarded to a company with outstanding industrial security practices. We are a 3-time award winner, and we won again in 2023. That was given to 19 out of over only 19 facilities out of over 17,000 across the defense industrial base. So that was a huge honor that we were recognized for, actually in New Orleans this last summer, that we got to go down and receive that. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that a big part of Infinity is not just focused on the work that we do within the space community and focusing on our customers, but it's focusing on our community. We have a community service group within Infinity, all employee volunteers. We have at least monthly ways that employees can give back time, talent, and treasure across the community. We work with veteran groups, veteran nonprofits. We work with STEM nonprofits here in our local community, and it's a big defining part of who we are as a company. It's not, it keeps us well rounded. It keeps us grounded on what's important. We're not here to be served, but to serve, and that's a big part of who we are and what we represent. So. So that's a little bit about Infinity, and we look forward to continuing our growth here in the future and providing opportunities for our current employees and future employees, and supporting our customers.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you for laying that all out. Really informative. Helps me get a bigger picture of what you guys do. I might shoot this next question over to Jay, or you both can tag team it, but I was hoping you could delve a little deeper into the technologies Infinity specializes in. I know you mentioned that a little bit in your background, but it includes space missions operations, systems engineering and integration, software and test engineering, systems sustainment and training. So I probably can't speak for all of my audience, but I barely know what some of those things mean. So if you could lay out exactly what these are and what your company does towards these mission aspects.
Well, thank you, Sydney. Appreciate the opportunity to do that. I'm going to first start by actually one of the awards we received, and you're going to see where this kind of parlays into what I'm going to be speaking about. But the Freedom Award, again, it gives proof to how very much military focused we are on, enabling the folks who are associated with the Guard and or Reserve, like myself on the reserve side, of being able to continue to contribute in a military capacity to support the missions where we might have, started our careers on or within. So again, just wanted to kind of highlight that, and you'll see where I'm kind of going. So if we're to start out from a space mission operations perspective, you heard Patrick identify just how present we are with supporting missions within Space Operations Command. So we, for the programs that are acknowledged or able to be discussed in open forums, we're supporting approximately 70% of the space missions today. I could list all the programs, but I don't know how much time you have or are going to be able to allow us. We could be here all day and evening, but ultimately we're supporting over 15 space programs / satellite constellations. And we're doing that both from a control segment Usually they're called master control stations or mission operations centers, but those are the facilities that are ultimately doing the command and control of our space assets. So it might be keeping them in their right plane and slot within an orbit, or it might be providing commands up there to do taskings of any capabilities that we want to get information for. Or if we talk in terms of global positioning systems, we're doing data refreshes on a daily, hourly basis to make sure that our civilian and military users are getting the best signal at all times. So again, I'm kind of talking from a control segment perspective. So we're helping we Infinity, our professional engineers, are supporting with either upgrades to evolve the current control segments or mission operations centers that are being used today, or we're building and preparing to transition to a new, as Patrick talked about, we got a lot of dated technology. So we're catching up, right, to the technology of today. So that's being done sometimes on a full replacement of a ground segment. So that's ground segment focus. Now, if we talk space segment focus, based on a lot, Patrick alluded to the fact of approximately 120 personnel who previously were active duty on the military side and were certified operators and or maintainers. So bring them into supporting systems engineering, any really discipline from system engineering on the front end to software development, integration and test, and then ultimately fielding. When our folks have the ability to do that with that operational mindset based on the years of experience they have, it really helps us ensure that we're delivering a product to our government customer or our prime customers. If we're teamed with an industry partner, we're making sure that the capability that we're evolving or building to deliver new is going to satisfy the warfighter. And that's critical these days, to make sure that the capabilities we're providing are relevant for their needs. I think that is about it regarding going a little deeper. I kind of touched base, from the mission operations to the system engineering, software development, integration and test. Do you have any further questions, I guess, based on what I just told you?
I don't think so. I mean, it sounds like you guys do a lot. Like, it sounds holistic from kind of, you said the ground segment to the space segment, right? How do those two things connect with each other, I guess would be my question. Your ground segment and space segment.
Okay, so you heard me talk about ground antennas earlier, right? So I lived that day in the life when I started active duty military. But we have sometimes a dedicated network, dedicated ground. I'll use GPS, for example. We have dedicated ground antennas that are available to the GPS mission at all times. But then there's a network that's called satellite control network. That's a shared network that the number of space programs or the constellation we support, over 15, there's a lot more than that out there. But in terms of what we're associated with, we know and at times help make sure that the master control station or control segment interfaces and is able to successfully use the satellite control network to command and control our satellites. So that would be the means that's used to, again, connect ground to space and fly our constellations.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you for explaining. And I know you, Patrick, previously mentioned a few times the digital engineering solutions product line that came out in 2023. So what can you guys share about those technologies and products that came out?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Sydney. So our digital engineering solutions product line, we were really excited to launch this in 2023. I gave you a little bit of the history of, starting off with IRAD and coming up with ideas to solve pain points that we've seen based upon our experience. So what we did is we defined for ourselves. We started off by defining the overall end-to-end digital engineering value stream. And it could be defined in a number of different ways, depending on who you are, your background and everything. But for most people, if you were to say define the digital engineering value stream, you'd probably come up with about 90% of what we came up with. So what we did is we, everywhere from planning, customer discovery, requirements, use cases, all the way through human machine interface and edge processing. So we defined that end to end, and then we looked at where are our core competencies, where do they lie within that area. And for Infinity, our core competencies really lie within the digital thread, model-based system engineering, modeling and SIM, AI ML, kill web analysis, and some requirements use cases. We're focusing some growth in software application development because a lot of what we're building are microservice-based, containerized, cloud deployable applications that these technologies are being deployed under. So we first started off with that digital engineering value stream, and then from there, we've been utilizing the SBIR process, the Small Business Innovative Research. And we didn't submit anything for phase 1. We did that all through IRAD. So we really focused on the direct to phase 2 SBIRs. And we've submitted several, but we have been funded specifically for 2 direct to phase 2 SBIRs. So those are our first 2 initial products. The first one is called VSME. It's our virtual subject matter expert. So we're on contract with the Air Force Nuclear Weapons Center, based in Kirtland, also with personnel out at Hill Air Force Base. And they have a process called the SEAM process. It's the System Engineering Assessment Model process. I know it's a lot of acronyms, so I'm trying to spell them out as I go. But that SEAM process today, for nuclear assurity, they have to go through and look at all key artifacts to make sure that they're compliant with that process. And it takes about 1,200 hours to go through all of the documentation, and essentially fill out a stoplight chart within Microsoft Excel for compliance. So what we're doing is we're utilizing a large language model and AI ML technologies to help automate that process. And we'll have our MVP, our minimal viable product, out this coming summer, and then we're going to continue to build upon that. But our hypothesis is that we'll be able to shorten that process from, say, 1,200 hours today to less than 200 hours in the future. There's still going to be a person in the loop, obviously, through that process. But it's a great example of what you can do to increase automation within a workflow. And we have a number of customers who are interested in variants of that to support some cyber use cases as well as some other use cases. So that product we're really proud of. The other one is called Render. And Render is a digital thread orchestration tool. And it has been now developed for about 3 years, again, starting from the prototype phase, but we are now on contract with the Space Development Agency, with SDA. I know there's a lot of SDA acronyms out there, so I have to be clear, it's the Space Development Agency. And with that MVP, that minimal viable product, will be completed by the late summer timeframe. And essentially what we're doing is we're activating MBSE models. So we're activating SysML models, so representative, authoritative source of truth models for systems that in some cases they exist today. In other cases, they may not exist in low fidelity, that become high fidelity models can be developed in the future. But we can now take those models, we can connect those models to a dynamic data source such as the UDL, the Unified Data Library, or Warp Core, or other data lake type products that are out there. And then we can also connect them with simulation tools. So tools such as AFSIM or Giant or STK or MATLAB. And we can pull the models in, we can pull the data in, we can improve the data, we can improve the models essentially by those data sources. And anyway, we're really proud of this technology because it assists with really all phases of the system lifecycle, from the force design, upfront acquisition phase. So if you're designing, a new constellation, for a new satellite constellation, and you're trying to figure out, as we increase the number of satellites, or we increase the capability of those satellites within that constellation, how many do we need, and at what time do we need them to get that type of coverage? Those are all types of use cases from a force design perspective. We can also take use cases for advanced training. So we're looking forward to an upcoming meeting with Starcom to talk a little bit about some advanced training needs. You look at how complex the world in space is today, and how fast things are moving, and you can think about how hard it is to train your workforce, your operators that are sitting on console today, not just on the capabilities that they have today, but what's coming tomorrow, what's coming in a month, what's coming in a year, and how do we stay ahead of the evolving threat, and make sure that our operators are qualified and certified to perform their mission on a day-to-day basis. And this particular technology will assist with that. So we're really excited about that. And then in addition, we have a couple of other products that were selectable, unfunded, and we look forward to maybe discussing those on another day, just because I know we're pressed on time. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Sydney, for any follow-up questions.
Oh, no, very cool. Yeah, I think it's so fascinating, that one render that you talked about with developing constellations of satellites, you said, or helping to manage kind of how those are set up. I've never heard of satellites in a group referred to as a constellation, so that's even new to me, and all the technology that goes behind it. But yeah, that's super cool. I will ask later about kind of your thoughts on the evolving threats that we face and how we're keeping up with that. First, I want to talk a little bit about a project that you're involved in. Forge C2 is a big project that you were one of 4 awardees. And just because I run press for NSTXL, so I know that this project has just gained a lot of traction and attention in media, and rightfully so, because it's such a foundational project that will serve a lot of endeavors in the future. So, like I said, it served as a foundation for a government-owned, cyber-secure, modular open systems approach, the MOSA, for missile warning satellite command and control, including mission management, ground control, telemetry, if I'm saying that right, tracking and commanding. So I understand that this is okay, thank you very much. You're the expert here, not me. I understand that this is an ongoing competition for phase 2 of the project. So what can you share about the role that your company is performing for this important mission?
Yeah, no, thanks for asking it. And like you mentioned, obviously this is currently a competition for phase 2. So one of the things that I really like about, and I know we'll talk a little bit more later about this, but I really like what Space Force is doing from an acquisition perspective, because they need capability fast. They need it today. They actually needed it yesterday in a lot of cases. And the traditional way of acquiring products and services, as you know, is very slow. And the fact that they're using an acquisition approach where they're using, obviously utilizing spec and prototype, the prototype OTA, and having a down select and making sure that they're picking the best of breed moving forward, I think is an absolute fantastic approach. So yeah, like you said, we were honored to be part of the phase 1. We are honored to be part of the phase 1 for Forge C2. We developed a team of non-traditional companies that all came together, and that together have the unique expertise that it takes to deliver this system. And one of the approaches I think that I really appreciate about Spec, and I appreciate it about Space Force, is that they're open to bringing in non-traditionals. They're open to the fact that, we might not have the same pedigree and history
Sure.
that some of the larger companies have, but what we do have is a lot of really great talent, and that amazing talent has a lot of mission expertise. We might not be as process bound as some larger companies, but we still do have standard processes that we follow. We do have repeatability, so we are able to deliver. And again, I can't share too much about our approach on this, other than that we're thrilled to be part of this. I believe that we've all been through our phase 1 demo. We got some great feedback from the customer, and we look forward to the upcoming 3 demos and the follow-on phase 2 work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do have a follow-up question. So phase 1, you said, was 4 companies that are all non-traditional. I'm wondering what you think kind of the strength and benefit is of having all kind of these small non-traditional companies working together.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the fact that we're able to be very agile, that we're able to be responsive to the customer requirements. We do have some existing capabilities, but we're not necessarily drawn in I don't know how to say it best, but we're not trying to steer a customer to one of our existing products. We're trying to develop the best product for the customer.
I see.
So the non-traditional companies can really go in with both feet, dive in with both feet, and address the customer requirements and be able to deliver quickly. I think that's about
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm wondering too, speaking of phase 1, it's such a foundational project, as we mentioned, a foundational phase of the project. The technology that was or is being developed in this phase will be used in many future projects, as I understand. So could you speak some more to the significance kind of the first phase, especially as you're kind of moving into phase 2?
Sure. I mean, again, the down select process is going to enable the government to have the best possible solution moving forward for this product. And for those of you, I guess, that are watching or listening that aren't familiar with Forge C2, I mean, this is a common command and control capability for both the current generation of OPIR, which is the overhead persistent infrared system, and then the next generation of OPIR. And the OPIR mission is extremely important for our country. As you're probably aware, it's the first detection of pretty much any missile launch anywhere in the world. Also, first detection of a lot of our fires, in forest fires around the world. So that from a mission perspective, it's extremely important.
Yeah, I didn't know that about the fire detection with OPIR. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Let me add, Sydney, if I can, real quick. So the other aspect on the different phases, we're, as Patrick said, designing and developing a control segment. So doing a lot quicker than what we've historically been able to do. But by these multiple phases and having multiple teams do it, it's a way for the government to ask for it to be done quicker, but then buy down the risk. Because as you're doing these phases, call it the fly off. Who's meeting the requirements and doing it successfully to ultimately get, like I said earlier, get to the end game of providing the warfighter, meeting the requirements, providing the capabilities they need. Thanks.
So it's a bit more efficient from the government side. That totally makes sense. And then I want to ask too, kind of going off that, you mentioned the utilization of the other transaction authority, the OTA, which SPEC is an OTA. How is the utilization of this, or just being a part of SPEC, do you think benefited your team in this process?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say a number of different things. So defense acquisition has evolved tremendously over the last several years, really with the onset of the adaptive acquisition framework. And I talked a little bit about in my introduction about my, being inspired by Dr. Roper and some of the movements that were happening within the Department of Defense to figure out how to field capabilities faster and how to take advantage of, both FAR and non-FAR based acquisition approaches that that enable us to be able to field capability at the speed of need to our warfighter. The old, I guess the best way to describe it is the old process of starting with, if you were to put it all on paper, it would be this gigantic poster that you'd have to plot, and an acquisition professional would have to go through and tailor out everything that wasn't needed. And again, this is from a FAR-based perspective, but I'll come back to the OTA. With the onset of the adaptive acquisition framework, we're now starting with essentially a blank sheet of paper and tailoring in what is needed when it comes to acquisition. And whether it's a middle tier acquisition or the software process. I mean, there's so many different ways that now an acquisition professional can put something on contract quickly and field things very quickly. And what I really love about the OTA and the OTA prototype, just like Jay had said, is it allows the government now to work outside of the FAR, but also within the confines of a well-defined process to put best of breed in place to support the warfighter. Because at the end of the day, we're all taxpayers. We're Americans. We really care truly about the missions that we support on a day-to-day basis. And I know that I sleep better at night knowing that the systems that are in place are the best of the best. Yeah. So using an OTA and using some type of a competition, I want the best product to be out there. And if that product is being developed by Infinity, great. If it's being developed by one of our competitors or partners, great. Because that's what we all want as Americans. That's what the government wants. Is the very best product. And I believe the OTA allows the government to put the best product in place as quickly as possible to support our country and our warfighter.
Yeah, that's a really great answer. So to kind of wrap things up, I think the last thing I'll ask, I'd like to get both of your perspectives on just the overall status of security and sustainability in space defense right now. So where do we stand in relation to some of our competitors and some of the biggest technology needs that are out there? How do you think we can fill these and get there?
Yeah, I'll go first, and I'll let Jay jump in. So just starting off with where do we stand in relation to our competitors? I think that for the folks that are listening today that have had the opportunity to read through the news or to listen to an unclassified threat brief, we all know that there are multiple countries throughout the world that are evolving capabilities very quickly that don't have good intentions for the United States and for our allies. And we as a country have to be focused on getting the right technologies in place at the right time. I had the opportunity, I didn't go into a deep dive into it, but I had the opportunity at my time at Lockheed Martin to work very closely with the JSPOC out at Vandenberg and help stand up that operation when it was stood up in Building 8401 and moving a lot of the equipment out of Cheyenne Mountain and standing it up at the JSPOC. And those are some of the systems of record for monitoring essentially all of the debris and all of the active objects that are up in space. And at one time, there was a theory out there that it was a big sky theory, and you put something up in space, and as long as it didn't collide with anything else, it was considered safe, and it was considered an asset that was going to be there for a long time. And our adversaries are developing technologies and putting them on orbit or on the ground very quickly, where they can now take action against a satellite, essentially disabling it. And there may be people out there saying, well, what does that mean to me? And it's, well, use GPS as an example. If GPS today is a really critical part of our military. It's a really critical part of really the everyday lives of every person living on this planet. And if that technology or if that capability were to go away, it would have a huge impact. So, one of the things that I know the Space Force is working on is how do I protect and defend that capability, and how do I start putting alternative sources of PNT, of GPS into play, so that that is protected and endures any type of an attack or any type of a failure or any type of degradation. So
Absolutely.
that was a lot of rambling. I apologize, but I'll
No,
turn it over
that's
to Jay
great.
to jump in.
Okay.
Yeah, you kind of led into where I was going to go. And GPS is, whether it's GPS or MilSatcom or just comm in general, we're talking more so DoD, but whether it be DirecTV or whatever. I mean, if you're to just sit and think about all of that being taken away, I mean, our world would go dark. As we know and have in our culture have been accustomed to live in our day-to-day lives today. But with GPS, even back to the early days, back in the mid 90s of starting to support the GPS program, one thing we'd say is GPS is like air. It's just there. You initialize your phone for the day or go out on your venture and you can bring up your app. It's just your timing is always there, telling you what time it is of the day. It's just a given, right? So if those capabilities were to be taken away, we would I don't know if we would know what to do, right? Go back to our hard copy maps and such. But definitely, as Patrick alluded to, we're going through measures of hardening our capabilities and making more resilient to where, whether it's our primary means or alternate means are there to where we can make sure our capabilities are not taken away from us. And that's, Space Force. Let's talk about Space Force becoming a service where that priority of making sure those capabilities continued are part of the reason why we have a Space Force today. So, it all comes together and ultimately, we want to have it be like air. It just continues to be like breathing air. So I think that's all I have, unless you have anything further.
No, that's really well said. Yeah, that's super interesting. And it's been such a great conversation, Owen. I learned a lot, and I think our listeners will as well. But I just want to ask if you guys have anything else either of you would like to speak on or add before we wrap up.
Yeah, I just wanted to really just thank you. So thank you, Sydney. I know Jillian, you're listening in as well, and the entire NSTXL team. Really appreciate what you guys are doing and how you're contributing to national security space through running and orchestrating the Space Enterprise Consortium. And we're proud members of SPEC, and we encourage all small businesses that are working in space to get involved in SPEC. It's a great opportunity for you to bring forward your capabilities and to be able to contribute to national security. And I know that we here at Infinity are thankful for that. Also really excited for the future and where it lies ahead and how we can be a major part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for saying that. Again, it's great to have you guys on. Great to have you as members, and looking forward to talking more in the future. Thank you for coming on, and I'll talk with you guys soon.
All right. Thanks, Sydney.